platform that allows food buying club to efficiently organize, to create joint purchases of food directly from farmers. And we also service farmers directly who want to have an online presence and who want to sell their farm-produced products online. And it's great. Thank you very much to Future Harvest for organizing this. I'm really happy to be part of this.
Thank you, Mark. And Bob.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Bob Fry. My wife and I operate St. Brigid's Farm, which is actually a dairy farm on the eastern shore of Maryland in Kent County. It's a small farm, 62 acres only, but it's 100% grass. And we often say that we're a postage stamp in the middle of big ag, because all surrounding our farm is cornfields, wheat fields, and soybean fields, depending on the time of year. We have Jersey cows for milking, and of course the Jersey cows the milking cows have calves each year, and half of those calves are male, and so we keep all the bull calves and raise them either as grass finished Jersey beef, or on some occasions we feed them cow's milk and spring grass and raise what we call meadow veal. All of our beef is sold direct to individuals and to some regional restaurants. So that's just a brief introduction of St. Brigid's Farm.
Thank you. And we'll both hear a lot more from each of them later in the presentation. I'm going to do an overview of a few of the resources available through Future Harvest, what my role is in helping people set up buying clubs and connecting them with farmers, and then we'll hear more from each of them. And another reminder to be using the chat box to say where you are, where you're farming, what you're looking for. And before we start, I wanted to do a really quick poll. Oh, the poll's not working. I wanted to ask people if you were looking to start a buying club, or if you're a farmer who's looking to connect to buying clubs. So although the poll isn't working for me right now, please add that to the chat box with your email or any way to contact you if you're particularly interested in starting a buying club, or if you're a farmer looking to connect to buying clubs. Either way, you'll be able to take something from this webinar, but just wanted to get a quick idea. So one of the first resources I wanted to share from Future Harvest is the amazing Grazing. It's a guide and a directory of pasture-based farms in the Chesapeake Bay region, which includes Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia. Even though I'm sharing my screen, in the video of me, you can see that I have an actual booklet in my hand. So you can get a hard copy, but also on the website, which Deb will share in the chat box, you can get a virtual copy of this, which includes a map of the region where all the farms are, and it gives you a nice profile with the name of the farm, the address, a little paragraph about each one, so you know their practices and what they're growing. And it's great to just have around, so you know how close proximity you are to some of these places. And it demystifies what it looks like to have local meat. You don't have to go as far as you may think you have to go all the time. So definitely download a copy of that from the website when you get a chance. Another resource that Future Harvest has is this Buying Club Toolkit. On the toolkit, you'll find a lot of different links, a lot of different websites that explain buying clubs, and also connecting you with different price sheets and cuts of beef and different grass-fed animals, so you can learn the landscape and get a better idea. It's really important when you're starting one of these to do a lot of research in advance. I'm here as a resource as well to help you do that research and point you in the right direction, because there is a lot of information out there. Today, we're going to be talking to a cattle farmer, but of course, we know there's grass-fed goat farmers, there's grass-fed lamb, there's also chickens, pasture-raised chickens, and pigs and different animals that you can find in amazing grazing. But what we really want to do is just support farmers to support their communities. So however that looks, whether it's buying a whole animal, half animal, setting up a buying club so you have a regular, so the farmer has a regular income and the consumer has a regular supply. It's all, going towards the same goal. So buying clubs are cooperative groups of families and individuals that pool their money and their resources together to buy in bulk from a farm. Instead of going to the grocery store and buying meat on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, a buying club allows you to buy it in bulk at potentially a lower price and store it, so that you can have more access to it and create community around supporting your local farmer. A lot of you are probably familiar with CSAs and community supported agriculture, and a meat buying club is just another form of that, supporting your farmer so that they can provide you with the best quality produce, meat, and products. So there's a lot of reasons to go bulk. Some of them include price, and supporting your local farmer, being able to always have a supply of meat when you're especially in these times with COVID and people being wary of going out in public and going to grocery stores and worrying about having a lot of different hands and people touching their products. A buying club allows you to cut out a middleman as well. So it's really helpful for these times where you can go directly to the farm and go directly to the butcher, or just have one or two middle people between you and your food. And then a bonus is, of course, buying clubs connect you to like-minded people. So if you're the person who wants to start the buying club for your community, you can use websites like Nextdoor, use your social media to find who else wants to do this type of thing and support local farmers, regenerative agriculture. And then a super bonus is you get to connect directly with your farmer. And farmers are really cool people when you get to know them. They have a lot of answers to a lot of questions that you may have, and you don't have to, you learn a lot, and you take the middleman, take a lot of the guessing out of buying your food when you are directly connected to your farmer. On the toolkit, we have a few steps to starting a buying club. So I wanted to run through these steps really quick, just as an overview, but throughout the webinar, we'll go into each of these steps in a lot more detail. But step one, first and foremost, as I mentioned, is learning your landscape. So what's available in your area, what types of animals and farms, how much freezer space you would need, what price range you're looking at, any software that you want to use. It could be Excel sheets that you use, or it could be a platform like 1,000 Eco Farms. You want to learn like what the yields of each animal might look like. So how much meat you're getting from a cow and what that breaks down in ground beef or steaks or bones. That's really important. And there's plenty of resources in the toolkit and also online to find that out. And then you also want to learn which farmers are in your area. So you would use the Amazing Grazing to find farmers, reach out to them, learn what their price ranges are, what kind of cuts are available, and find that match. Once you have a good idea of the landscape, then you would want to recruit members. So you got to figure out how many members you want in your buying club. Do you want it to be a collection of families, a collection of individuals? Everyone may not be putting the same amount of money in. So some people may be getting all the steaks, and some people may just want soup bones and oxtail, for example. So you can you can decide what the split will look like as a buying club coordinator. And again, my name's Aaliyah. I don't know if I mentioned or said my name, but I'm available as a resource, but for the coordinator to talk through these things and do one-on-one consultations as well. Once you have recruited members, you've learned the landscape, you've laid out different options for people, then you work with the farmer to figure out a pickup and delivery structure. I think Mark Meytin is going to go give a lot more details of that because he's worked with a few different farms and buying club coordinators and knows how the logistics can work on that. And people use freezers, people pick up at farm, they may use a school or a church or different communal spaces to be pickup spots. And yeah. And then the step 4 is the best part because you get to eat this amazing meat. And we have also resources in the buying club about how grass-fed is leaner, cooks a little differently, and it's important to use all parts of the animal when you're buying in bulk. So you have less waste and you get to, experiment a lot more than you may when you just go to the grocery store and buy a prepackaged steak or prepackaged ground beef. So, again, check out the buying club so that you can, look through all these steps and figure out if this is a good fit for you. So now we're going to get into our presenters and our guests on this webinar. I worked with a farmer named Katie Dotterer-Pyle. She has Cow Comfort and Dairy in Maryland, and she started a hashtag called Ask a Farmer, Not Google. And I really liked that and asked if I could use that for this webinar because it's, again, that's the whole point of a buying club, connecting you to your farmer so you can ask them the questions that you have and demystify. So now that we have Bob on the call, I'm gonna ask him a few questions. You can also ask questions at the end, but I prepared a few that I think would give people a good idea of their farm, their practices, and how buying meat in bulk can work. So Bob, can you tell us a little bit about your farm and its practices and also why grass-fed or grass-finished is important to you and your farm model?
Sure, Leah. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So as I mentioned in the introduction, Judy Gifford and I have a dairy farm. It's 62 acres and it's 100% in grass. And so our overarching goal is to utilize as much of that grass as possible by turning it into milk that we sell through the Land O'Lakes milk cooperative and or beef. And so our overarching goal is to guide the cows and the steers and the calves around the farm with strategic fencing and waterers so that they can harvest the grass properly and we can produce the maximum amount of grass per year and convert that into milk and meat. So that's the gist of the way our farm works. And why it's important to us is my day job is I'm a nutritionist I'm a veterinarian and a nutritionist for dairy cows. I really don't see and treat sick animals per se, as much as I'm dealing with the entire herd and the nutritional wellness of the herd. If they're nutritionally well, they're going to produce well. And it was very clear to me early on that having cows on grass and having grass as a substantial part of their diet was a really good thing for the cows. And if it's a really good thing for the cows, then it becomes a really good thing for the owners. And so since Judy and I are owners of this farm, having grass-fed cows and the replacement animals seem to be a great fit. Additionally, a grass-based platform like we have is extremely good for the soil health, It's good for the watershed that we happen to be in the Chesapeake Bay watershed, so it's a particularly sensitive watershed. And I feel like that the people that drink the milk from our cows and consume the meat from our cows have a healthier diet too, because it's higher in CLAs, it's higher in omega-3 fats, and both of those are antioxidants and anti-carcinogenic, and so it's a good thing for all of us, I believe.
Nice, thank you. Is there a difference in grass-fed and grass-finished? Did you touch on that?
No, I didn't touch on that, but that's a good point, and there is a difference. The vast majority of cattle that are marketed in the United States through the commodity food chain and restaurants are grass-fed at some stage of their life. And so the term grass-fed is quite often overused or misused in marketing purposes. Most all beef is grass-fed at some point. A very small portion of beef is grass-finished, meaning in the commodity beef market, for about the last 120 to 150 days, the cattle eat no grass, and it's primarily corn that they eat, and that's how they're fattened and finished. So a grass-finished diet is going to, their entire, at least last year to year and a half of their life cycle are consuming just grass. And it ends up being a wonderful beef with great color, good marbling, and a wonderful flavor. It just takes a little longer to do that.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. I know a lot of people are wondering about, the marketing of those things. So I've heard a lot from talking to farmers about this process, I've heard a lot about butchers and how that can be a bottleneck in the system at points. Maybe there's not enough butchers in their area, but can you explain the process from your farm to the butcher
Sure.
and to someone's table? Yeah.
Yes. So you're exactly right. Butcher availability is limited in certain parts of the country. We happen to be very fortunate to have 2 USDA inspected butcher shops within 50 miles of where we live from our farm. And so the process is first I have to schedule at the butcher shop, and that's not necessarily just pick up the phone and say I want to bring a steer in tomorrow to have butchered. It's something that we do 6 to 8 months in advance to have slots reserved at the butcher shop for when an animal is finished and ready to go to butcher, that we have a space for it. I've got schedules all the way up through December. It's either through November or December of this year. So once you have it scheduled, we have to arrange for trucking. We hire somebody to do that. It just happens to be that we hire the butcher shop. They have a truck and a trailer. They come to the farm. They pick up the animal. It's about a 20-minute truck ride to the butcher shop. And at the butcher shop, they are humanely euthanized. And so they're humanely euthanized, and the process starts. They will be dry aged in a cooler for about 10 days, depending on the butcher, between 10 days and 20 days that they'll dry age in the cooler at the butcher shop, and then they're processed into cut portions according to your cut sheet, frozen, and that's the process.
Okay. So some of your cows would go there and you would get the cuts back to sell retail, but if someone were to buy a half cow or a quarter cow or a whole cow, how does that work with the butcher?
Okay, so I get the order from a person that wants, we'll just use a whole cow in this case, order from a person that wants a whole cow. I have the animal scheduled at the butcher shop. When the cut sheet goes to the butcher shop, the person purchasing that cow and myself have gone through the cut sheet and figured out whether you want you know, T-bones in porterhouse, or do you want filet in New York strips? Do you want your top round? Or do you want London broil? All the different choices you have to make. We get all that figured out ahead of time. I send a cut sheet to the butcher shop with the animal, okay? And so they have record of how this particular animal is to be cut and what name is to go on the label and on the boxes. So if your name was Smith, that all goes on the box. And then you pick up, in the case where you're buying a whole cow, the purchaser of that cow picks up at the butcher shop when the butcher calls me and says it's ready. And payment on a deal like that, the purchaser of the whole cow would not be paying payment to the butcherer. They have to pay the farmer, me in this case, prior to picking up at the butcher shop.
Okay, good to know. So I just put up your cut sheet and examples of your price list.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit more about, is it more efficient, cost efficient to buy in bulk, half whole, quarter animals, and what that pricing looks like for the average cow?
Sure. So I'll just talk, first I'll talk through the cut sheet and then we'll go to the price list. Most people don't know what the choices are. So I send a buyer a template of this cut sheet, and then we just, over the telephone, usually figure out how they want things cut. And so, you know, you take like the top round of the animal can go into, there'd actually be 4 things. You can get a top round roast, a London broil, minute steaks, or it can go into ground beef. Drop down to the loin, okay? The loin can go into filet mignon or New York strip steaks. Now, if someone says, I would like to have T-bones and porterhouse and New York strip, it doesn't work that way, because a T-bone is actually made up, a T-bone and a porterhouse is actually made up. One side of the bone is the filet and the other side is the New York strip. So you get either or, you can't get both. And then you can see down the list there the various things that you have to decide whether you're going to either get them or not get them. If you're not going to get shin bone meat, then you're going to decide whether you're going to put it into ground beef or you're going to make stew out of it. So there's a lot of decisions like that that usually an experienced farmer will be able to help you through the process.
Okay.
Now the pricing. These just happen to be our retail direct to consumer prices of individual cuts. Every farmer is going to have a different price point and different demand and different quality of beef and so on and so forth. You'll see at the bottom of the list, complete or half steer, $4.50 a pound. Now, it's important to understand that what does that $4.50 a pound represent? In our case, it is what's called hanging weight for the animal. And it includes all the delivery of the animal to the butcher shop. It includes all the kill fees and butchering fees and processing fees that come back from the butcher shop. And it's basically the price that you're going to pay per pound of hanging weight for that animal. Now, what is hanging weight? It gets very confusing at times. So I want you to imagine a 1,000 pound live animal. Okay, that's live weight, 1,000 pounds. In general terms, hanging weight is going to be about 50% of that, sometimes 60%, but for easy math, we'll say 50%. And that's basically what's left over after they take the hide off, take the intestines out, all the organs out, the heads off, and basically you have this carcass hanging in the walk-in cooler. So that's 500, now we're down to 500 pounds. And then last you have cut and packaged weight. That's after they've ground into hamburger, T-bones, porterhouse, chuck roasts, all the different cuts that you're eventually going to get there's a lot of waste in that. They have, you know, fat that gets discarded. There's different portions of bone that they can't utilize. And again, the weight gets cut approximately in half. So the 1,000-pound animal turns into 500 pounds hanging weight, turns into about 250 pounds of cut and packaged weight that you're going to take home and put in your freezer. So the $4.50 a pound hanging weight would be equivalent to roughly $9 per pound of stuff that you're going to take home. Okay? And that would be $9 a pound for ground beef, which sounds very expensive, but it's also $9 a pound for filet mignon, which would be extremely cheap. So that's how the hanging weight things, the complete steer works in our case. The price point for a hanging weight at $4.50 a pound is not really cheaper than getting all this stuff by the piece. And the reason it's not cheaper is that my costs are all the same. The cost to raise that animal is the same. The cost to deliver it to the butcher shop and get it butchered, all those costs are exactly the same, whether you buy a whole one or you buy the piece. And so there's no incentive for me to make a whole animal or a half or a quarter any cheaper than by the piece.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Yeah, that was my next question. Like, are there benefits to you as a farmer? And are there any disadvantages to selling the whole animal or in bulk?
So there's the only benefit to me as a farmer is that for a whole animal purchase, the buyer of the animal picks it up at the butcher shop. So I don't have to go to the butcher shop and bring it back to my freezers and put it in my freezers and then redistribute it. But I'm doing that anyway. So whether I bring 2 animals back or 3 animals back, it doesn't impact it too much. The advantages to the purchaser, in our case at least, it's not that it's lower cost, but you get to decide exactly how you want the cut sheet to be laid out. Do you want your steaks 1.5 inches thick, or do you want them 3/4 of an inch thick? Do you want a whole tenderloin, or do you want filet mignon steaks? So you do get some you get some advantages in that respect. Mm-hmm. Disadvantages to the buyer in whole animals is that first thing is you'll be surprised how small amount the 250 pounds is. Start with a 1,000-pound animal and you bring home 250 pounds. That's going to be your first surprise. Second surprise is going to be how much ground beef is in that. There's going to be a lot. And so when you bring and I'm not trying to throw water on this, I'm just trying to give you the real deal here. When you bring home that 250 pounds and 6 months later, when your family has utilized everything except for the soup bones and the ground beef and some other cut that you didn't particularly like, okay, you eventually have to eat all that stuff. And so it's not in proportion to the way most people consume beef in many households.
Mm-hmm. So it forces people to get a little bit more creative with how they're using.
Absolutely, and some people do that extremely successfully. And every household is a little different, you know. Like for the people that just buy direct from us, some people only ever buy hamburger. We got other people that only ever buy filet mignon. So everybody's got their personal preference, but just know that when you buy a whole cow, you get to eat the whole thing from the tongue to the tail.
Mm-hmm. And you would say one whole cow does that last one family for 6 months, or do you see groups of people coming together to buy a whole animal and maybe they're buying it more frequently than every 6 months?
Yeah, if it was a group of people, was certainly going to buy more often than 6 months. we've only ever sold to groups of 2. All right, 2 people get together and buy a cow. And even with that, it's a bit tricky because when that cow comes back from the butcher shop, it's going to be in about 5 or 6 boxes, about the size of a beer cooler, okay? I don't know what, you know, 5 or 6 boxes that are 40 or 50 pounds each. And so you get home with that, and you and your neighbor, you and your friend have got to split it up, and you're sorting through 250 pounds of cold beef, frozen beef, trying to decide, well, how many T-bones are in here? How many chuck roasts are in here? Oh, there's 5 chuck roasts. You get 2, I get 3. Mine are a little bigger than yours. You know, it's very difficult for the consumer to split it up. Now, the butcher shop can generally split it in half if you order, I want 1/2 and I want the other half. But there's certain things on the cut that there's only 1 of. And so what do you do with the ones that you only want 1 of? And now I want to complicate this by the fact that now we've got 5 people that want to go together and buy a cow. And I have no idea how you're going to split it 5 ways.
Yeah, it's a big job for the coordinator position, I think, to do that type of matching with the family.
Yep.
See what's, you know, everyone uses different parts of the animal. Yeah, knowing that no one will get the same amount is definitely a lot of work.
Yeah.
Cool. One last question, but I mean, there are more questions are coming in that we'll save
Yep.
towards the end, but I just wanted to know if you had any advice. I mean, you've been giving it for people wanting to purchase meat in bulk, but anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would suggest that if you're considering buying direct from a farmer, whether it be in bulk or by the piece, okay, be sure to visit the farm. That's most important. Visit the farm, meet the farmer, and understand the production practices they have on the farm and the priorities, okay? Do they have the same priorities that you do about animal health, about animal welfare, about soil health, environmental welfare, all of those type of things that should be important to you as the buyer. Be sure that they have the same values that you do at the farmer level.
Yes, definitely.
Know your farmer.
Thank you for
Okay,
that.
so I've taken enough time. I'll let you move on, Aaliyah.
Okay, and we'll come back with more questions towards the end. Thank you. So Mark, Bob, did you want to share this piece?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is, you can read as well as I can, but it's really true. We got a comment back from a buyer just last week, and he sent me, I guess it was a Facebook message, just to let you know that family has been doing blind taste tests at dinner. We cook a few pieces of the same cut of meat, one from St. Brigid's farm, another from a grocer, another from butcher box, etc. I believe that St. Brigid's has come out on top every time, so it goes without to say that the entire family are St. Brigid's fans. That was really, really wonderful to hear that, and it just keeps you going in this business when you get positive comments back from families that are buying your beef. So,
Yeah.
thank you for letting me share that with you.
No problem. And I love that you pointed out that price may not be the selling point always, but this type of feedback shows you like the taste, the flavor, the connection to the farmer. All of those are invaluable. So just keeping all of that in mind too is really important. Cool. So now we're going to move on to Mark Meytin with 1,000 Eco Farms. Mark, I'll do the PowerPoint. So, you know, whenever you need me to change a slide, let me know. But when you want to share your screen, or if you want to, let me know that as well.
Thank you, Aaliyah. So yeah, let me step back for a moment and just talk about in general how buying clubs, in my experience and experience of the business that I built, work. Then I will show a couple of live examples on a live system, but it's just to make sure that that again, just to clarify how the entire buying club experience works. And buying clubs, first of all, are not, it's not a new concept, which was interesting because it's a bit of a niche concept, has been, but has existed for a very long time. In fact, when I started working on this set of tools, I ran into a book which is long out of print, but I was able to grab a copy on Amazon. The name of the book was something like Food Conspiracy Cookbook, How to Start a Neighborhood Buying Club. And it was published in 1970, early 70s, describing experience of organizing a buying club and basically banding together of several like-minded people, neighbors, community, neighborhood, of being able to get good food easier than and maybe less expensively than what is available otherwise. Another kind of very active example of a buying club is Joel Salatin, which is one of the I would argue probably one of the best known farmers in US today that advocates for grass-fed cattle and regenerative farming, etc. He has been running a buying club, even though his farm is in Virginia. He has been running a buying club, delivering to Maryland, to DC, and to locations in Northern Virginia for the past probably about 10 years or so. So the concept itself is not new. The way it works is very simply, from a consumer standpoint, is you somehow select the products that you're interested in. And in case of our platform, you go to the website and you select them there. If it's not a platform, you contact the buying club coordinator and you basically tell them what you're looking for. Then there's a deadline, and you have to make sure that you make your selection before a deadline. So you place an order, and then coordinator takes care of coordinator. In some cases, it's a farmer itself. It's a farmer-run buying club. Or it could be a third-party person just in the neighborhood that they takes care of logistics of collecting all the orders, going to the farm, picking up the purchases, and bringing it back to a designated one or more pickup locations. And pickup location, it could be a small business, it could be somebody's driveway. All you need is a place to put a cooler. Some buying clubs set specific hours that you have to pick up between, say, 1 and 3 p.m. That's probably less convenient for the consumer. Some of them just basically deliver to a pickup location and leave it in a refrigerator or in a cooler at the pickup location. So, and then consumers come back to that location, pick up their food and enjoy it. So it's a very simple process from a customer standpoint. And the way buying clubs work, they always work, well, the ones that I've seen, they always work on a cyclical basis. And a cycle is usually a week. So the next week, the process repeats when you get a different cut of meat or a same cut of meat or just different products that you're interested in. And so from a consumer standpoint, from a club member standpoint, it works, once you know how it works pretty simple. And once people know that it's working, they are actively participating, usually actively participating, and kind of stick with the club once they start buying from it. Now, let's look at it from what does administrator have to do? Alea, can we do the next slide, please? So the buying club administrator or coordinator or the owner of the buying club, it's again, they're structured differently in every case. They usually are a type of a co-op that people are kind of banding together, usually are non-profit, although in some, out of my experience, some buying clubs actually run as a small for-profit entities. But usually they're non-profit. People are organizing buying clubs because they want to get this connection with the food. They want for their family to eat real food. And they also want to be able to share that experience with the people in their community. So in many cases, it's a combination of those things. So there's a few steps that have to be done to first to create a buying club, and that's probably the more complicated process. So you have to, if you're a farmer, obviously you will be selling your own products, but sometimes you also want to resell products from other farms in the neighborhood.
You can give her another thing of basil if you want.
Okay.
Oops. Can everyone mute themselves? I'll try to do that. Thank you.
You establish connections with farmers. If you're a farmer yourself, you decide what products you want to make available through the buying club. The second item, which is more important, is to get this community going. And out of my experience, again, it usually is worthwhile to start a buying club. It doesn't take too many weekly orders to get it started. But I would say you probably want to have somewhere from 3 to 5 orders per week to make it worthwhile to collect the orders, because then you also need to figure out the logistics. And in case where it's a small buying club, the club coordinator usually does the delivery themselves. They drive to the farm, they pick up the products and bring it back to the pickup location. Some of the larger buying clubs, and I'll show you one example, they service I think upwards of about 14 pickup locations, and they actually hire a driver which makes the delivery route, because it's a driver with a truck, because otherwise you would not be able to fit it all in one in a passenger car. So you decide how you want to do the logistics. You establish the schedule, whether it's a weekly deliveries, monthly deliveries, etc. And then you, on a weekly basis, you update your product availability. You do want to remind the club members that buying clubs usually do not operate on autopilot. You have to send a reminder because people forget that there is a deadline and they have to place an order. After the deadline passes, you collect the orders, and if you use a platform like ours, you can generate different reports that farmers need to prepare those orders. And then on a delivery day, you go pick up the orders and bring it back. And finally, also platform like ours allow you to process the payments. If you're not using the platform, you have to figure out the logistics of how do you accept, the payment. That's, and again, so running the buying club is, once you get started, it generally is not a full-time job, but it certainly takes a few hours a week to be able to process the orders, collect them, deliver them, and depending on how you figure out the logistics, that's the the amount of time may be different. And based on that, you have to make sure that based on that you set the prices for the products appropriately, or set the delivery charges appropriately, because it is my firm belief that even if it's a non-profit business, or a co-op, you do not want to run it in such a way that you are basically that it's economically not viable. It has to make sense economically in order for you to continue this business. It's as simple as that. Let's go to the next slide. So really quick, just talking about the platform that we built. Do you have to use that online platform at all to run a buying club? And the answer, technically, no, you don't. You can run it on the back of a napkin if you want. I would not recommend it, but you can. You can use some off-the-shelf software like Excel or Google spreadsheets. But there are some very specific reasons. And of course, I'm biased because I built this platform, but I firmly believe that there are some very good reasons to actually use an online platform like ours. So what is the online platform used for? First of all, you want to present the products that are available for sale, including pictures when available, descriptions. You want to control the inventory, which platforms allow you to do. You also want to make some products, put them on specials, for example. For example, a farmer has, too much ground beef or something and they want to sell it cheaper. The platforms allow you to set sale prices and standard prices, etc. The platforms are good about also finding new customers and also communicating with existing customers. Of course, you can use just a regular email, but platforms usually include some other communication mechanism, such as sending the reminders or hosting the blog on a site or putting advertisements of what's on sale for any given week. And one very important item which is being underestimated, you do want to tell a story behind the food that you're offering through a buying club. Consumers have a lot of choices these days. They can go to a store, they need to understand why the food directly from a farm is better. Are the animals treated better? Is the food grown without pesticides, without chemicals? All that has to be communicated. And platforms allow you to do that communication more efficiently. Finally, the platforms allow you to actually accept the payments. And our platform allows you to accept the credit cards. Now, there are extra charges that come from credit card processing company to accept credit cards, but that's kind of the name of the game. You pay for convenience. You don't have to accept the credit cards. You can do cash or check. But again, some buying clubs do both, and some buying clubs decide to only use credit cards or only use cash or check. That is a choice that you can make. Finally, another convenience from a buying club standpoint, especially in situations when buying club is not run by an individual single farmer, but run by a club really represents multiple farms on a platform, is the platform allows you to easily communicate to those farmers by sending different orders to different farmers. And this ability to offer complementary products is what makes buying clubs more popular, because a farmer may only have beef, for example, but customers also want to have, consumers like to have a one-stop shop. They like to go get their bread, their produce in the same place, their vegetables. So by working with multiple suppliers, buying club allows you to do that. And then the platform on the back end can take care of producing different reports for different suppliers, so that suppliers know what to pack for this week's ordering cycle. Let me just do I don't want to take too much of your time, and you feel free to check out our platform, but I want to quickly show how our website, how our platform works, both from consumer standpoint and from the club owner standpoint. If that's okay, Ali, if you think that's okay, then.
Yeah, definitely. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and then you can start.
Okay, so if you see my screen. Ali, can you confirm that you're seeing it? It's fine?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the front page of our website. If you can see, I'm authenticated. I'm kind of pretending to be this particular buyer. This is a link to the buying club landing page, and if you can see this buying club, Grassfed on the Hill is one of our larger clubs, and it has been operating for probably about 5 years now. Not always on our platform. Originally they started without the platform, then they were using a different set of tools, and then ultimately they started using 1000 Eco Farms. They currently deliver to a number of pickup locations. mostly in Washington, D.C. area, but also in Anne Arundel County, in Annapolis area near in Maryland. This particular buying club, if you take a look, they have 20 different suppliers right now. And if you can look, so Buffalo Valley Pastures, for example, it's an Amish farm in Pennsylvania. So obviously, the products from Amish farms are, have a reputation of some, especially some Amish farms, have a reputation of being a high quality, they do grow, this particular farm grows grass-fed beef and water buffalo. So and obviously from Amish farms, they don't directly sell using computers. So buying clubs actually play this key role of connecting, of creating additional markets for the Amish farmers. But if you can see, look at the other suppliers that this buying club has. They also sell cheeses from this, let me scroll down here. They also sell cheeses. They sell olive oil from a small olive oil producer in Baltimore. They sell chicken from a different farm. They sell microgreens from this farm called Randy's Garden. Even things like chocolate. Again, the buying club decides what kind of products they want to carry, and they also vet their suppliers. And one of the things I want to kind of piggyback on what Bob was saying, that I very much wholeheartedly agree with, is the best way to know what you're getting is to know your farmer. Even if you're buying through a buying club, it's always recommended you go visit your farmer, to know where your food is coming from. But visiting the farmer on a weekly basis to buy your products may not be convenient. So buying clubs do play this key role of, once you know the farmer that you're getting from, buying club can help you get the product from them on a regular basis, so that you don't have to make this drive on a weekly basis if you need your products. So otherwise, it works very similarly to a regular online store. As you can see, this is the the front page. I can pick the products. Products can have different options. This particular cheese is offered an 8-ounce block or 20-ounce block. Let's say I want the 20-ounce block. And then the way buying club operate is I have to select one of the pickup locations where I want to get it. And this particular buying club just gave the location's name, like animal name. So this is Swan, located in Silver Spring. And then each pickup location can theoretically have a different schedule associated with it. So some of them, and again, it's relevant for large buying clubs. For some of them, you may want to do delivery every Thursday, but for other locations, you may want to do delivery on Tuesdays. So once I pick a different location, the set of delivery dates changes. And it shows available delivery dates for this particular pickup location. So let's say I pick up this location in Cleveland Park. I want to have it the soonest possible is May 21st. So I add it to the shopping cart. Then if I want to continue shopping, I can pick another product. Again, add this. The site remembers that I was ordering it for May 21st. I add it to the shopping cart, and once I'm ready to go check out, again, very similar to a regular online store, shows me the products that I need. I click proceed to checkout and I pay for them. And I put my credit card number to actually pay for the products. Really quick, switching back to the, now in this different window, I have this open as a buying club operator. And the difference is, it's very similar. If you can see, it's very similar landing page, but there are some additional buttons and some additional menus that I have access to. So for example, if I go to manage orders, this will show me all the orders that the system has received. And there are different ways I can search for them. Let's say I want to see what are the orders that have been ordered for delivery on May 21st that have not been delivered yet, so the status is pending. And let's say I want to isolate a particular pickup location. I want to see all the deliveries that were delivered to Silver, all the orders that were ordered for Silver Spring. If I do a search, it shows me a list. There has been 6 orders so far placed. I can review each orders. And then when I'm ready to, when the deadline passes, what I do is I generate a packaging report, and there's a number of different options that I can select. And once the packaging report is generated, it could be printed out. And in this particular case, it's sent by email to the farmers. If a buying club works with an Amish farmer, for example, again, the issue is they do not use an email. So for those, they use the phone and they call, or sometimes they call the neighbor who prints it out and then gives the paper copy to the farmer. But that's the kind of the particulars of working with Amish community, which is happens to be a popular one in Mid-Atlantic. So and again, you do that and then you repeat that every week. One thing to note is that when people place orders, often if you look at the order, you don't know in advance the exact weight of the product. So when people place orders, they only place an estimated weight. They order an estimated weight. So for example, for this order, the estimated weight is 3 pounds. Now, on a day of, the day before the delivery, it usually doesn't happen on a day of delivery. Buying club coordinator contacts the farmer, and then the farmer goes through the orders and basically says, you have an order number 8636, and customer ordered chicken wings 3 pounds. Well, the actual weight is 3.25. So what the administrator does, they either edit the individual order by clicking this button, or we have a way to do bulk order editing where you open multiple orders for changes at the same time, and they change the weight. And the administrator can change the weights any number of times until farmer finalizes, because sometimes some products go out of stock, or they went to the cooler to actually pull a cut of beef that they're looking for and it's not available. So administrators can make those changes any number of times until they actually process the payment. Because when a person places an order, the credit card is not charged. It's only charged when the club coordinator charges for the order. And once the card is charged, the receipt is sent to the buyer automatically. And then when the order is ready to be delivered or ready to be dropped off at the pickup location, they click on the Mark Delivered button. And that also generates an automatic email to the customer that says, your order is ready to be picked up. You can go and get it from a pickup location that you indicate. And also to note, all these functions, again, if you're using the platform, all these functions are available not just on a computer, but also on your phone. So you can actually do it if you deliver to the multiple pickup locations. You can quickly mark them as delivered from your phone so that people can start coming in and picking up.
Nice.
I think that generally covers it. Yeah, Leah, do you want to take over?
Yeah, and we have a few questions for you coming up. I wanted to thank you and just give people some context that we were talking to Bob Fry, the farmer, and that showed you a way that you could directly reach out to your local farmer, talk to them, see what's available, and work with a small group of people. And now we have Mark giving us this platform that shows you if you want to be a buying club coordinator, you can have meat available, other products available, and work with your community in a slightly different way. And this platform kind of solves some of the issues of splitting up the meat because people get to pick and choose what they want from a drop-down menu. You may not have to split it up in the in halves or thirds or do any type of guessing work to split it up evenly if you just have an order sheet that shows all the cuts that are available and as they are bought or taken account for, then they're just gone. So that just to give a little bit of context, but we'll I wanted to do a little quick break, maybe like 3 minutes, because I know people may need to use the bathroom, get some water. And then when we come back, we'll answer a lot of the questions that are in the chat box and, you know, give some more space to our presenters. So we'll come back. It's 2:34 right now. If we could come back at 2:37. No, it's odd time, but we'll see everybody in a second. I'm gonna share my screen again, Mark. So thank y'all for sticking with us, and I hope this has been helpful. And one more reminder that this is being recorded, so you'll be able to access it later. Right. Quick little break. Yeah, so I'm looking through the chat box, looking at some of the questions. There's a list of questions on your screen right now that are kind of frequently asked questions that Mark and I came up with, but let's start with what's in the chat box and then we can move over to these questions if they're not answered. So one person asked, Dr. Rachel Caesar asked, is COVID-19 having any effect on this? And I've talked to Mark and Judy Gifford from St. Brigid's a little bit about this, but it would be good if each of you could give a little bit of context to how COVID-19 is affecting either of your businesses, your platform, or your selling of your meat. Bob, if you could, maybe you could start out.
Sure, I would say it has definitely impacted it. I did our numbers for the month of April, and we were 300% year over year. In other words, April last year to April this year, we sold 3 times the amount of direct market beef that we had sold the previous year. As well at the butcher shop, they are extremely busy, and people are picking up retail cuts directly from the butcher shop, which makes it very difficult for me to be able to get butcher shop reservations, hence the reason I've got them all the way through the end of the year. So yeah, there's been a huge buying frenzy. And it yet to be known is whether or not that buying pattern is going to continue into the future. I'm hoping so.
I hope so too.
And just to echo what Bob was saying, and we have a benefit of seeing sales for multiple types of customers that we have, both individual farmers and buying clubs. And we definitely see increased interest and increased sales for food from local farmers, which is, if there's one silver lining to the virus situation, I think this is it, because the consumers are, perhaps, I'm hoping, that are realizing that the kind of the industrial method of food production is not sustainable and ultimately not beneficial for any party involved. I hope this, the interest in local food will continue.
Nice, thank you. Sadea asks, have you or do you know any farmers who sell to restaurant collectives, and does the pricing change? I think, Bob, you touched on how pricing may or may not change, but maybe you could.
Well, I guess I should clarify that. We do sell to some restaurants, and we sell to a few what I call resellers. And for those buyers, we do offer a discount from our listed retail prices.
Okay.
You have to, you can't, if you're going to sell to restaurants, they're tough. And, even sometimes the discount that we offer is not adequate for some restaurants. It's tough business.
Yeah, they have their margin to worry about too. When the buyer picks up the meat from the butcher or from the farmer, is each cut labeled?
Yes, labeled and weighed.
Labeled and weighed. Okay. Is on-farm slaughtering a thing that you think about, Bob, or is that unavailable to most farmers at your
It is it's prohibited by federal regulations to resell from a location that is not a USDA inspected facility. So basically it'd be illegal.
Even for religious reasons?
I guess it would depend on your religion. I mean, there's some religions that don't follow the laws. So if your religion doesn't follow the law, then I guess you can do whatever you want to do.
True. Okay. That's just something that keeps coming up. Like if there could be more, the price point could maybe get lower if there was some way for on-farm slaughter, but I know the legality-wise, that's not really available. Another question, how much ground beef do you get from one cow? I'm sure that might change, but any insight to that?
I've got a guess, but Mark, do you have any specific numbers?
No.
I'm gonna guess that of the finished weight, the 250 pounds that I'm talking about in my 1,000-pound steer, I'm going to say 60%, 50 to 60% will be ground beef, depending on how you orchestrate the cut sheet. Now, there are some of our steers that go to market where it's where the end user is a restaurant, just an Italian restaurant that just uses ground beef. So 100% goes into ground beef for that buyer. So it really depends on how you do the cut sheet.
Nice. Will the farmer or butcher typically package the meat for separate groups as part of one club? Someone said, say if I have 3 groups that want to participate in the club, well, I have to take the pieces from the whole cow and sort them myself.
The only way the butcher would be able to split it would be in halves or quarters.
Okay.
If you want to divide it some other way than that, then you're going to have to do the division.
Makes sense. Mark, on your platform, from what you've seen, when coordinators buy a half cow or a whole cow, are they holding it themselves, or are they just going directly to through the farmer?
Yes, and I preface to say that my experience is probably limited. It's limited to what I know through the platform. It has not been a very popular method of buying, and maybe that's some of the reasons that Bob kind of went into at the beginning. But most, I would say 98% of all the purchases through our platform has been for specific cuts. Now, in some cases that I've seen, either a farmer or the coordinator does store the full cow in their freezer in that case. And then coordinator splits it up. In many cases, what also happened is, not in many cases, in couple cases that I've seen, is coordinator may sell out of, it's still ultimately the club members, in many cases, get it as individual cuts. And more popular cuts seem to go much faster than maybe less popular ones.
Okay.
Leah, I would like to comment on this for just a second. I've been fascinated listening to Mark about this concept of a buying club administrator or coordinator. And as I think about our situation at St. Brigid's Farm, not only are we the farmer, but we're actually the coordinator for several different buying clubs. In other words, we drop off in a couple different towns. Once a month, we just do it. But we're the actual coordinator. And if I were thinking about being a buying club coordinator, the one concern I would have is, how am I going to manage the balance of my inventory so that at the end of this particular cow, I don't have a freezer full of nothing but ground beef, or I don't have a freezer full of nothing but short ribs and New York strips, because it's the tail end of the inventory that becomes very difficult to sell. And oh, by the way, in the meantime, you've already got the next cow scheduled to come back from the butcher shop, and now you come back from the butcher shop with more ground beef than you want because you've already got tons of ground beef left over in your freezer. That inventory management is difficult, and you have to have some way to balance the excess. For us, this Italian restaurant that I mentioned is a way that we balance the excess, whether it's excess live animals or excess inventory of our own, because we can sell them ground beef at a discount for pizzas and lasagna and so on and so forth. So that's just something to be on the lookout for if you intend to be a buying club coordinator.
Really good point. So you mean to say people don't love ground beef?
Some people, that's all, I'm telling you, some people, that's all they eat. Some people don't touch it. So generally, if you got kids, yeah, ground beef is the thing. If it's retirees that have money and are willing to eat steaks when they eat beef, that's you need some of those customers as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is all really good feedback for a coordinator. See if there's any other questions in here. There's a lot of, well, Bob said that the butcher will only split into quarters or halves. What is the reason for that? Can they split into smaller portions?
they can, but they don't have the incentive to do that. I mean, they're busy. They got tons of business, and they're moving these animals through. It's difficult business. Most of the people doing the cutting and packaging and wrapping don't even have a high school education. They may or may not speak English. And so you send a cut sheet into them that says you want it split 5 different ways and you want this much in one box and this much in another box. It's not going to happen with the 2 butchers that I know.
There's a lot of conversation about on-farm slaughter. And I was thinking with COVID and USDA inspections and certain types of inspection and regulatory bodies being on halt or, until further notice, that's neither here nor there, but do you think it would lower cost to consumers if on-farm slaughter was legal and someone had the means to come to your farm and do that? Maybe not your farm in particular, but farmers in general.
I'm trying to think why it would cost less, because there's certainly costs in butchering. They've got to, they got labor to pay for. They got to dispose of the offal. They got inspectors to satisfy. I mean, I don't know what it would cost to do on-farm butchering, but you certainly wouldn't want to do it for free. So I just don't know how the economics of that would work out. It's not even a possibility, so I haven't explored it.
Yeah.
Why would someone want to do on-farm butchering as compared to have it processed at a sanitary USDA inspected butcher shop? Here, when we're all worried about food safety and contamination, you want me to go out and hang the cow from the tree and have flies on it, and packaging it in brown paper? So I think you got to think about what you really want.
Maybe this is for Mark. Alan Black asked, is there a benefit to just being a pickup site? I don't know.
So each buying club kind of works with multiple pickup locations differently. And if you want to be a pickup site for an existing buying club, that is certainly, some buying clubs do offer benefits. Some do not, because people just serve as a pickup site because for their orders, essentially they're delivered right to their house. So that's a built-in plus that they get. Some buying clubs offer discounts, additional discounts of whatever the products, and our platform actually does support offering custom discounts to different members and all that. But generally, the benefits are defined by a coordinator, by the organizer of the buying club.
Okay, that's good to know. Someone did also ask about your platform, Mark. Is there a cost to using the platform?
There is, because we have to make money. It is a business. We charge a very small, the way our platform charges is we charge a very small percentage, basically 2.5% of a gross order amount. And we are in a process of actually instituting a cap on our fees, because a couple of large buying clubs, they're using successfully our platform, but even though in percentage terms, the fees are fairly small, in absolute numbers, they're becoming fairly large for them. So we will be adding a cap to our fees.
3.5 plus credit card fees.
That's correct, yes. So 2.5 is what our fee to operate our business. To do the credit card processing, we just basically pass those charges along. We don't don't make anything on those charges. Our credit card processor is charging 2.9% plus 30 cents per transaction. That's a fairly standard in the industry. So now your individual client, Bob, may decide not to accept credit cards, which we have a couple of people that have done that. Although, again, paying with a credit card does make the process much more convenient for the customer. So even though there's a cost involved, I think it's probably worthwhile to keep that option. Especially in the current time where people are hesitant. If they pay with a credit card, they use the credit card from the safety of their home, and they don't have to exchange money or checks or anything like that. So I think that's a short-term problem. Hopefully that will be solved, but that does seem to be an advantage, at least now.
Nice. Thank you.
And I see there's a question that just came in from North Carolina. Our tool is available around the U.S. So yes, we have clubs in. We don't have any in North Carolina, but we have clubs as far as Iowa and Texas.
Cool. I forgot this slide really quick. I found it online, and I put the link in the resources, but this is pretty much all the stuff we've been talking about already. And then lastly, we have some resources, but Elizabeth Bauer asked, does the buying club administrator set the price, or is it determined by the supplier?
So it's usually set by administrator. And usually, depending on how close the relationship with the supplier is, it's usually coordinated with the supplier. So for many buying clubs, and I've seen the kind of related question above. Somebody was asking, is there a list of producers that are working with our platform? We do have some producers that we've worked with, and we'll be happy to pass those along. However, our platform is really targeted to make products from small farmers available. So, and small farmers, by definition, small farmers likely are not going to be able to service more than a few buying clubs. So, but the tools that we have and the reports that we generate are fairly self-explanatory, and they can be. It's easy for farmer to work with us. But in many cases, a club coordinator, probably we can help find farmers in Mid-Atlantic and Maryland area, just because I'm here and I have a lot of connections, friends now in farming locally. But going outside of this broad area, you probably will end up working pretty closely with a local farmer. And we can help get their products on a platform. But ultimately, the price-making decisions are between the coordinator and the farmer. The platform really does not participate in that in one way or another.
Thank you. We gotta wrap up pretty soon, but Bob, does this picture look familiar? I'm pretty sure this was your farm.
Yeah, it does.
So I can attest to say that their farm is beautiful. Their practices are amazing. I haven't gotten a chance to try your meat yet, but when I make it back to that side of Maryland, I definitely want to come through. Here's a list. I'm going to send this PowerPoint out to everyone who signed up for the webinar. So you'll have this, and then this webinar recording will be on the Future Harvest website. So in this PowerPoint, you'll find contact information for Mark and for Bob, their websites, and a few other resources, along with our notes from the slides. So I really hope this was helpful. And as people are, getting to think about this more and more, and you have more questions, feel free to reach out to me or anyone else on this webinar. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer, but I'm definitely, I'm designated to be the question answerer and to connect people to resources. So please feel free. I forgot to put my address in here, but you'll get a personal email from me so you can reply back to it. And again, we're looking for at least 5 people who really want to start a buying club in this area so we can walk through the process and create a model that really makes sense for this region. And as you heard, there's a lot of barriers, but there's also a lot of opportunities. So no one has it fully figured out yet, but we want to work with you in particular, at least 5 people to figure it out so that it can be a replicatable model. So yeah, thank you to everyone. Any last words from our presenters?
No, just thank you very much for participating, and I'm definitely enjoyed sharing information about what we've done and the knowledge that we have.
Great. Thank you for having me join with you.
Thank you both. All right, see y'all later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.